Hello friends, so today's video is going to be a list of some authors that I don't personally think would work well together, and by that I don't mean that they would be incapable of being professional toward one another. It's more so that I don't think the end result would work very well. I think their styles might be a little too different, that the tone of their books might be a little too different, or their fandoms really wouldn't mesh well together. There's a little part of me that some of the author combinations I'm going to mention actually secretly wants that combination because I think it would produce a really interesting story, but other ones I have no idea how it could ever work, and I just don't think it would work, and I was kind of amused at some of the author combinations, and I thought I would share. This sort of came into mind because, as many of us know, A Song of Ice and Fire is not finished. That is the series that the TV show, if you didn't know, A Game of Thrones is based on. I know all of you know. Every now and then, if you're in the fantasy community, you will see people have conversations of who should finish the series if George R. R. Martin does not. And I see Brandon Sanderson's name get thrown around, and yes, he writes very gripping, engaging stories, and yes, he writes really fast, and he has finished another well-known series, Wheel of Time. However, I don't think that would work well at all. I can't imagine with Sanderson's way of writing, especially because I think his stories are a little more on the hopeful side. He has these really hard magic systems, and he writes very fantasy-centered stories, meaning that they're not really historical fiction-based like Game of Thrones is, and I always am so confused when I see people say they think Sanderson should finish it. Could he finish it? Yes. Would it be a Game of Thrones anymore? No. That's sort of the idea of me taking that concept and finding other authors that I also think wouldn't really work. I'm going to start off with the one that perhaps would be the absolute worst idea. And that would be Steven Erickson, who is the author of Malazan Book of the Fallen, and Sarah J Maas. These two authors, one is known for writing this very dense story that spans over so much time, and a lot of people feel like his background in anthropology heavily influences how he writes. I would say also his books are not character driven. Not that there aren't memorable and interesting characters, that's just not really the focus, and especially the romances are generally not the thing people are picking up that series for. And also, I think that fandom, there's so many really, really nice fans. My friend Petrick likes it. My friend Alan likes it. They're fantastic. I'll have their channels linked. I adore both of them. And there's a lot of really awesome Malazan fans. But the negative side of that fandom is known for being really pretentious and really condescending and really rude. Not all of them, but the negative side that every fandom contains, that's what that one is known for being. And then you have Sarah J Maas. She writes books that there's a lot of emphasis on the romance, and she kind of has her signature style at this point. A lot of her books have fated lovers, mates, those kinds of tropes. It's all about the characters and the romance, I would say. Not so much about the history of the world and how some event that takes place here is going to impact something that takes place hundreds, if not thousands of years later. They're just so completely different. And then her fandom, I mean, they're all about the ships. They're all about the characters that are going to end up together. And I just can't imagine. I can't imagine Steven Erickson crafting this really intense world and then Sarah J Maas being like, but who's going to be banging in this world? However, like I said, there is a little part of me that sort of wants some of these to happen, because what would that book look like? I don't know. I think it would be funny. Next up, this one, oh my gosh, I had morbid thoughts as to what would happen to poor TJ Klune's books if he had to collaborate with R.F. Kuang. TJ Klune is known for writing these really joyful, cheery, heartwarming books, and they're just like cinnamon rolls in a book. They're just so sweet. And then R.F. Kuang wrote The Poppy War, and she is all about, you know what sucked? History. You know what also sucks? People. So I'm gonna write about that, and it's really brutal. I don't even want to say the things that happen in The Poppy War because they're awful. They are awful. And I feel like if they had to work together, TJ Klune would think of some adorable story about like how much people love their pets, and he would write something really precious and cute, and you're like, I do love my pet, I love my dog so much. And then R.F. Kuang would be like, what terrible thing is going to happen to those pets though? And then she would come up with ideas, probably based in history. And then I think TJ Klune would have to write a book about how it made him feel to hear just how terrible her ideas were, you know, because she's going to bring the hammer, she's going to bring the blood. And I feel like it would break poor TJ Klune. I don't know. I think they would get along as people, as human beings, but I just don't think. I mean, where I said with Steven Erickson and Sarah J Maas, and I'm like, what would happen if they collaborated? With this one, it's a pendulum of one side to the next. You're like, this is the cutest thing ever. Oh my gosh, what did I just read? That was horrifying. The next one, so this particular author, okay, C.S. Lewis. Most of us know that C.S. Lewis definitely incorporated a lot of religious themes into his books. And this is something that you see a lot of authors do, something that's deeply personal to them, they write in their stories. And I'm just imagining what would happen if C.S. Lewis was paired up with J. Kristoff. I feel like as soon as the children entered Narnia, they would get instantly way hotter. They'd have to get a makeover. And they would also be like super pale, and their hair would be really dark, and them and the lion would eat the witch and bathe in her blood. That's what would end up happening. And then C.S. Lewis would be like, what happened to this wholesome story? And then J. Kristoff's like, I made it edgy. And then C.S. Lewis is like, what part of the Bible is this about though? If Hot Topic carried Chronicles of Narnia merchandise, that's kind of what that story would be like. This next one, I 100% actually want to have happen, and that would be Robin Hobb and Andy Weir. So Robin Hobb, most of you know who that is. She's known for writing just the most depressing things, and I'm somebody who typically really enjoys, I've said so many times, just sitting with characters in their feelings. But man, does Robin Hobb take that to another level. And then Andy Weir, I read part of The Martian, and the really constant optimism of a man stranded on Mars it just irritated me. It was the exact opposite, where I'm like, have some deep, sad, depressing thoughts right now. You're stranded on Mars. You're all alone. And I get maybe this almost false optimism or perseverance. You have to push through. You can't let yourself dwell. I get that. But I also kind of want to see some cracks forming. I don't want it to just be like, I'm going to send an emoji of a lady's chest in this really important message I'm sending back to Earth, because that happens in that book. And I want the depressing side of Robin Hobb with the whole being stranded somewhere. I think that would make for a really good book. I think that oh my gosh, everybody's so sad, and can somebody have more emotions please over here? I want those things combined. The last one I will mention for today would be Brandon Sanderson, kind of full circle, bringing this back around, and Jennifer L Armentrout. So if you don't know who that particular author is, they recently have written a series that a lot of people are head over heels for, and that would be the From Blood and Ash series. I'm not sure if that's the series title or not, but that's the first one. You've likely seen it around. And also, I did do a vlog reading that first book. And Jennifer L Armentrout kind of sort of falls into a similar camp as Sarah J Maas. Their books are definitely very character-centered and romance-heavy. And then Brandon Sanderson, while he is also very character-centered, I would say, as I mentioned at the beginning, his fantasy worlds are so intricately crafted that there's so much to devour even just in that alone. And then you have these other characters. However, the one thing that even Sanderson fans are like, I mean, yeah, is that the romances, they just exist. They're not really, they barely even exist. They're just people that are sometimes married. So I feel like Jennifer L Armentrout would be like, ooh, an arranged marriage between people that don't know each other. Let's have lots of tension. And he would be like, how about things just work out? They get to know each other, and then now they're in love, and it turned out their marriage worked. And she's like, all right, we can do one book like that, but how about the next one? And he'd be like, let's have people have an arranged marriage again, and then it works out. And then she would be like, when is the juicy stuff happening though? And he'd be like, never, I don't write that. You know, there'd have to be some compromise on the amount of saucy scenes and to what extent the sauce exists. If they could find a balance, maybe it actually would work. That's it for some authors that I personally was amused at myself for thinking of these combinations, and I would love to know what authors you think would maybe not work well together, or maybe actually would because they're so different. But anyway, I hope you all had fun with this. I know it's kind of just a silly random video, but I had fun with it. I also hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you all later. Bye.